this episode of Grassroots Garage, we have Damon's 13B Turbo Mazda 1300. This is one tough little street car styled to perfection. Still in the testing phase, it has already cracked 500 horsepower on Pump E85 and has stomped out a few 9-second passes. We caught up with Damon in Wollongong, and you know we had to cruise down to the lighthouse. Massive shout out to Damon's kids who captured these awesome shots of the cars for us.
Welcome to Grassroots Garage. We've got Damon today. Damon, thanks for your time, man.
Cheers, Pete. Thanks for coming down.
Mate, it's good to be here. We're in the beautiful bush. You might hear some goats in the background, and I won't apologise for that. Mate, tell us about your car.
1972 Mazda 1300 STB model. I've owned it for nearly 20 years. Bought it as a piston 4-cylinder. I kept an eye on it in the trading post. Remember the old trading post?
Yeah.
Yep. So it was in the trading post for 7,900, and it still had the plastics on the door trims, the back seat, had some new old stock parts in the back, and I guess the little story behind it was it came from Nowra Mazda as their showpiece in the showroom, and it was basically in there for 14 years on the showroom floor. And then sort of, as you get, being 20 years of age and seeing 13B turbo cars, you know what I mean? That was probably always the goal. And yeah, here we have it, version 2, 13B turbo, automatic with a 9-inch in the back. I've gone away with the chrome bumper bars because I run a little shop called the Coating Garage that specialises in performance coatings and powder coating and cerakoting. So yeah, they're powder coated along with the door handles.
So a bit of your coating under here as well, is there?
Yeah, there is. So the car was fabbed by a good mate of mine from BBSFab, Stars. He basically has done majority of the fabrication, mounting the engine, turbo manifold, full 3.5-inch exhaust, strut brace. We've used PWR Elite Series cores on the radiator and also intercooler, running the 16-inch Spal Thermo. Turbo-wise, it's got a modified T51R with a 50mm race gate by TurboSmart. Injector-wise, it's got 4 Deca Siemens injectors and 2 2200cc primaries. Billet Boss side mount alternator just to keep the engine bay nice and clean up the top. Fuel pressure reg, TurboSmart as well, the usual TurboSmart blow-off valve wastegate deal and the fuel pressure reg. Gearbox has got a C4, so it's got a modified Transbraked C4 built by Sash from SNS Automatics. It's got a TCE converter in it. It's got a 6-point chromoly cage in it, and in the back we've got a Ford 9-inch with a Gazzard Bros split monoleaf. So it's got an anti-roll bar and caltracs, but if you look on the side, it's actually a bearing.
Oh yes,
So
okay.
As I get on the power, it counterlevers on the caltracs, and that will move up to about here.
Yeah, right.
So we're running a bit of serious kit in the back to try and get this thing down the quarter mile easy. So in the interior, I've kept it pretty factory. I had designed and 3D printed in carbon I guess a dash center insert which also incorporated the eBoost 2. I've also run the Microtech Pro Dash as well, the Logger Dash. I've also sunk the shifter down to basically retain the 13800 Presto center console, just to give it that factory look. These Kirkies I put in the car originally, actually. So the original interior used to be a tan colour, and then since version 2, I wanted to sort of keep it original. So the car originally had the orange interior from factory, and I've basically used the original fabric or material to retrim the Kirkies in a Mazda stitch, and also had the retained the factory embossed logo on in the headrest as well.
It's a nice little feature, isn't it?
Yeah, and I also, some people think I'm nuts when I take them in the car. I still retain the lap and sash Mazda belts.
Yes.
To keep it original.
Yeah, I love that.
I've also got a Simpson harness for the track.
Proper. And you can put people in the back of here. It's pretty tight.
No, so it's actually engineered as a 2-seater because of the main hoop. It's so far back.
How long did you drive it around in stock form? Did it hit the road with the pistons?
I guess, yeah, I kept it as a piston car for probably about a year, and then got the bug. I had a S14 Series 2, sold that to buy an engagement ring, had a little bit left over, and bought a Series 5 13B turbo. I basically bought it off eBay, and then had that built with a mould setup. Used to have a Jatco in it as well with a Hilux. And yeah, basically it's been 13B turboed for 14 years.
I love
out of the 17 or 18 years I've owned it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So version 2, just give us a bit of a who's built it, where did it get, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So I lived over in Europe for 11 years, and a good mate of mine took good care of it with the original setup. But then the idea was as soon as we got back to Australia, we'd buy a house, and as soon as we took ownership of our house, the next week I did the usual shed skid, and then it got torn down. This setup here is always how I've wanted to have the car, which was like have the rear tucked, a decent tyre on it, so it runs a. Oh, what was that?
Was that the Mazda picture? We're not cutting that out either. We've had an injury in the back of the screen here.
Whoops. not enough duct tape.
Broken.
Yes, I always wanted a sort of large tyre on the back for a small car. So it can fit a 255, but I run it with a 235 60 radial. The engine, so 13B Cosmo, semi-PP. So Kev from South Coast Rotary did the semi-PP for me. A good friend of mine, Stuart Turnbull from Freaky Racing.
Yeah,
Stu.
Yeah. We love Stu. He's the best. He's the best.
Yeah, he ported the plates for me. For me, basically taking up a gearbox to him because I had to go up to Newcastle. So we did a bit of a deal there. And then I basically bought the plates home, cleaned up the runners, and basically assembled the engine myself.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Have you got a background in mechanical?
No.
Wow.
Long story short, when we lived in England, I paid someone to build an engine for me, and it would not start. So my first engine was basically a tear down on the kitchen table, and rebuild it with again some South Coast Rotary seals, and yeah, fired it up and had it all balanced and basically built it to spec from the Mazda manual, and it fired up first go.
Wow.
So basically had, again, sort of similar scenario, cleaned up the ports after Stu did the initial cut, had the engine balanced by Wilkins Performance, and then had the rotors machined and side clearanced, and then basically built it in my shed.
Wow. That's normally with the rotaries, a lot of guys, pick a shop and get South Coast Rotary to build it for you. Were you nervous? How'd you feel about the build?
No.
No.
I mean, this is probably about the fourth motor I've built. So it was literally, take your time, make sure it's all done, check the clearances twice, and stack it like your sandwich.
I love that.
I mean, people say that rotaries are unreliable, right? Like, the first engine that I built is still going now. So as long as you take your time and do everything by the book and don't cut any corners, I mean, it's working still, performing pretty well. So it's made some good power as well. So for someone like myself that come from a corporate background, it was good to just get your hands dirty and say that you've built it.
Oh, mate, it's coming across, I'm sure. I was shocked to hear that. I'm like, you built it yourself, you what?
Yeah.
So what is the final power? Has it got a dyno run or anything like that?
Yeah. So I had it tuned on the hub dyno, and it made just over 500.
Wow. Yeah.
It's made a little bit more than 500.
If you wanted to, you can do a big dyno number, but anything over 500.
Yeah, well, I've only got it on pump E85 at the moment. But looking to obviously put it on the the drum E85, maybe some methanol injection a bit later, and put 40 pounds in it.
And then you're talking 800-900 sort of around there, you reckon?
I don't know.
Who knows?
It all depends. I don't know. Yeah, we just have to wait and see.
You have run it down the quarter yet?
Yeah. So the previous setup ran 10.03 at 132, just with a small GT 35R on the Series 5 motor. This has gone 9.7 at 139.
Flying.
And we're still just sort of creeping up on the tune because whilst Kev did the original tune, I'm basically doing it at the track myself.
Wow. What's the computer in it?
It's got an LT16.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, Microtech.
Yep. Let's go right back. What was your first car?
My first car was a Honda Civic.
Was it?
Yeah. And funny enough, I basically got it when I finished year 12, and a priest used to own it. But had that. Then I moved on to a familiar GTX front-wheel drive turbo, and then sold that. Moved on to a Series 2 Calais turbo. Nice. Back in the day, nice. And then got the had the S14 Series 2 with the SR, and then sold that, and then I bought this with the leftovers from the engagement ring.
Must have been a nice ring, man.
Yeah. And then I've had a couple of Euro cars, some more RX-7s in when we lived in Europe as well. I'm really, really thankful for one of my mates, Mick, that had the car whilst we were in Europe. There's always that story where people have to sell things because they move on with life or whatever, but I've had it nearly 20 years, so it's going nowhere.
Absolutely. I love that. Give me, it's only the Rotary guys, it's always the Rotary guys. Give me some memories. Do you remember some early, like Wollongong especially was like a Rotary place, wasn't it? Like down at the lighthouse.
Yep.
A few parks around, is it Corrimal? There's a big car park there.
Yep.
Give us some Rotary memories from when you were younger.
Probably my first one of what got me into Rotaries was my brother's mate's RX4. He picked me up from school, had the old CIG locker, and he gave it an absolute gutful up the hill, broke that, and we heard it snap. We thought we snapped the back of the car off, and we didn't though, but I just remember that fond memory of getting picked up as in like year 7 or year 8, and my brother and his mate picked me up in that thing. It was like a Bridgeport back in the day, and that was probably what first got me into Rotaries. The scene as well, when I was probably like 15 or 16 and my brother was 18 and 19, sorry. I remember, the old Pac-Man came down from Sydney, with the 20B tubbed.
Talk about the 85s. Is there anything else planned?
Probably meth injection. That's probably the next to try and get the inlet temps down. whilst they're not they're not insane, it just always would be good to have them lower to make the engine, I guess, a better performing engine. And there's always more boost. But yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. It's just trying to get out to a couple more events. I have done power cruise in the car once. I recently just did Cootamundra as well in it.
Nice.
So a bit of the off-street drags is quite fun as well. But I think the idea is to try and get it back to the track and get it lower into the 9s, if not an 8, if it does it.
Wow. Hey, I don't see why it wouldn't, man. It's got everything it needs. Absolutely.
Yep.
Dream garage. Let's say you can keep this. You can have a nice little daily, unlimited budget. What else are you buying yourself?
I've got a soft spot for the GT3.
Yeah.
911. Yeah. Living in Europe and spending a lot of time at the Nürburgring, they're like Holden Commodores over there. And I've been in one around there, and yeah, it's just an amazing car. Rotary wise, I'm happy with this, but always a 20B would be nice in something, whether it be an RX4 coupe or RX3 sedan or something like that. But yeah, probably something like that.
I know you've loved this episode. We love our rotaries. We haven't had enough fun lately. We really want to thank Damon for his time. Mate, you're a legend. Thank you.
Thanks, Pete. Cheers.
We'll definitely be back for part 2 as Damon perfects his tough 1300. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for the next one.